I've played video games for as long as I can remember. They have always been a versatile medium for emotional stories, beautiful works of art, and unique ways to entertain the imagination. But in recent years, the gaming scene has turned into a twisted conglomerate machine devoted to profiting off of the very people that keep it alive, us gamers. And as someone who loves video games, it breaks my heart to see. I'm not saying that all gaming is going down this dark path, but it's disappointing to see that the major game developers and publishers are the ones who are. The companies that created our favorites years ago, companies who started from what could be considered classics in the gaming industry, they are the ones ruining it. They should be the example of what video games can be, but they are the problem. And it makes me sad to watch it all crumble before me, so I need to talk about it. I can't explain how corporate greed has ruined gaming without mentioning Fortnite. You see, Fortnite was successful like no other game in existence. In September of 2017, Epic Games released Fortnite Battle Royale. It was an instant success. In its first few months, the game amassed over 30 million players. It quickly became beloved by gamers across the world. It introduced new concepts like building to a familiar genre. It had a unique and extremely appealing visual artistic style. The skins they made were all silly and fun characters that they made a part of the lore. Even the weapons and in-game items were unique. They made the gameplay fun, but also kept it challenging. As time went on, they continued to update and change the graphics, trying to make it look better. But that unique cartoonish style was what we loved. Eventually, they also started to collaborate with companies to make skins or events from other media. And since then, they just cram as many IPs as they possibly can down our throat to sell more skins. They even introduced an option to play without builds. The very thing that made Fortnite so appealing at first because it was a new idea in battle royales, you can now play without. Fortnite is a different kind of tragedy because playing Fortnite today does not feel like the same game you played 8 years ago. It just happens to have the same name. But back in the day, it was incredible. If you played Fortnite early on, you know what I mean. By far the best part of playing it is that since its release, Fortnite Battle Royale was free to play. Yes, that's right. It was and always has been free to play. So how did a game that was free to play contribute to the monetary exploitation of video gaming? A microtransaction is basically a small, single financial transaction conducted online. Now, microtransactions are not new to gaming. The first microtransaction by a major publisher goes all the way back to 2006, when Bethesda sold armor for your horse in Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. They sold it for $250 on the Xbox Live Marketplace that Microsoft had introduced the year prior. The most ironic part about this is that Bethesda received a lot of hate and criticism for charging money for something that had no in-game purpose besides appearance. But in 2019, players report that 85% of games include microtransactions that are for purely cosmetic items. And that's 5 years ago. Microtransactions have been a growing problem for years since they started. One of the most popular and controversial forms of microtransactions is loot boxes. A loot box is basically something you could purchase that would give you random cosmetics. So players could effectively gamble to get in-game items, which is exactly what it is. It's completely unregulated gambling in games that most teenagers or even kids have access to. And it's clearly a serious problem because the UK Parliament even did an investigation into loot boxes in 2020 because of their similarity to gambling. Take CSGO, for example. CSGO has probably one of the most famous loot box systems in gaming. In 2013, CSGO introduced weapon cases. Weapon cases could be opened by purchasing a key from the in-game store. When you opened one, you would get a random weapon skin. Most of the time, you'd get some pretty lame stuff, but once in a while, you could get a really cool or rare skin. And there were plenty of variations to this kind of microtransaction in games for years. So, as you can see, Fortnite truly had nothing to do with the invention of microtransactions, but it played a huge part in the modern ruination of them. Just 2 months after its release, Fortnite introduced what they called the Item Shop, an in-game store where players could buy cosmetics to change how their player character looked. To buy a cosmetic in the Item Shop, you first needed to buy V-Bucks, which are an in-game currency that you could purchase in different quantities through, you guessed it, microtransactions. But individual cosmetics weren't the only thing you could spend V-Bucks on. Allow me to introduce the Battle Pass. In December of 2017, Fortnite introduced its very first Battle Pass. For just 950 V-Bucks, roughly equivalent to $10, players could buy the Battle Pass, which, after earning enough XP throughout the season, would grant you over 70 in-game cosmetics and other rewards. Now, Fortnite was not the first game to have a Battle Pass, but no game in history had ever, or frankly will ever, achieve the success that Fortnite Battle Passes have achieved. In its first year alone, Fortnite is estimated to have generated around $5.4 billion. It was these Battle Passes that made it such egregious amounts of money. Players loved the idea of paying just $10 for dozens of cosmetics that you had to play to earn. Fortnite obviously capitalized on the success of Battle Passes and continued making new ones about every 2 to 3 months, and players continued to buy them. Other game companies quite quickly saw the success of Battle Passes and immediately tried to copy it. Initially, you would only see similar games like PUBG or Apex Legends create their own Battle Pass, but eventually, it seemed that everyone and their mother wanted that sweet, sweet nectar that was Battle Pass revenue. Battle Passes spread throughout modern video games like the Black Plague. It was an unstoppable trend. Eventually, even games that never had purchasable cosmetics would go on to include a Battle Pass. Games like Halo, for example, where for years you could unlock most of the cosmetics simply by playing the game, would also join the Battle Pass trend. As a victim of its enchanting allure, I would be lying if I said Battle Passes weren't the coolest thing I'd seen in my, at the time, short gaming career. But it was cool because it was new, because it was unique. After years and years of seeing the same thing over and over in just about every single game I play, I'm sick of it now. And now that I'm older, I can see through the facade, and I know that Battle Passes are truly just an easy cash grab. And they led to something even more devastating. Battle Passes are not the only thing that Fortnite popularized, unfortunately. By making Battle Passes only available for a limited time, Fortnite would have to introduce a new one every few months with what they called seasons. And with this, they would update the game every season, introducing new items, mechanics, and in-game locations. This is how Fortnite became what is known as a live service game. Fortnite's business model was easily one of the most successful in video game history. They had created an instant classic beloved by all. So how did they give it longevity? By updating it every few months with new content and skins to keep players intrigued. And like kids to an ice cream truck, other companies chased this business model as fast as their short legs could carry them. As an example, Rocksteady's 2024 failure, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The company that created the renowned and beloved Batman Arkham series made a game last year that was set in the same universe as their successful story-driven Batman games. And they made it a live service hellscape. It was a live service-centered third-person shooter with a disliked story and weak gameplay. They took one of the best depictions of Batman and Joker we've ever seen and made them a paper tiger who's beat by some street thugs with no superpowers, and a twink from another dimension. It's no wonder they already announced that no more content will be added to the game. They ruined a perfect story to try and get that live service Battle Pass bread. And just like Rocksteady, many companies sought to create a live service titan, because they saw that a live service game could not only make them a plentitude of profit, but they could make less games while doing it. You see, a live service game seems like more work on the surface, but all it takes is updates. Publishers no longer had to make a new game every year or every few years. They could just make one game and update it regularly. So now, we are also getting less output of games. You would think that If they're making games less often, they would at least make them higher quality. You thought wrong. AAA game publishers have become lazy. A AAA game is a game produced by a major game developer or publisher. Most companies that are considered AAA have been in the industry for decades. Their whole company got their success from their older games that are considered all-timers. And because they have been established for so long, they have more money and more resources to make their games higher quality. That has always been the difference between AAA and indie games. Indie developers don't have the money or experience to be able to make their games extremely high quality, but AAA does. And they know that. So as soon as they saw that they could make more money from microtransactions than selling their game, they didn't bother making the game as good as it could be. They know that they will still sell their game because they are a titan in the industry. They know that we will see their logo and think, oh, I'll give it a try, I liked that game they made before. So either they make their game free to play and make it a live service microtransaction hellscape, or they charge twice as much as they used to for the base game because they know it will still sell. They do not care about their games anymore, just the money they make. In the 2022 Game Developers Conference, Justin Truman gave a presentation about Destiny 2, talking about the game's success. The whole presentation kind of felt like an explanation of the game's success with advice for other developers to learn from. But this presentation brought a lot of heat for the company because of one thing that he said. And I'm just going to play the clip here because it's seriously ridiculous, and I don't think paraphrasing would do it justice.
Over delivery is actually dangerous for a train station. With every release that you put out there, you're setting a pattern for your community and for your players. And so if we release an expansion with 2 raids, let's say, next year, our community is going to be upset if we go back to only 1 raid. And this is tough. Like, this is honestly one of the ones that we're still grappling the hardest with. Because it's hard to tell a team that has extra cycles and they have energy and they want to do something amazing and they know how to do it. And it totally would be amazing and awesome for the game. Sometimes we have to tell them, like, we shouldn't ship this because it's an over delivery that is going to set us up for failure on future trains.
That's right. While talking about how they introduce new features and content to their game, he said, "Beware of over-delivery, you're creating patterns." So his advice for other developers is to not over-deliver on their game because then the players might consider you a good developer and expect more from you. And I haven't even told you the most infuriating context of this situation. Justin Truman was the chief development officer for Bungie, the company that created Halo, one of the greatest and most memorable video game series of all time. Their chief development officer is now telling other developers to not over-deliver. In other words, don't make your game better than players are expecting of you because then you'll have to keep making good games. God forbid your company has to try to make something beautiful that might not make your company disgusting amounts of profit, because that would require love for what you do. It would require, trigger warning, passion. The real tragedy of this tidal wave of marketization in gaming is the loss of passion. These games no longer have the authentic, original stories and art that they used to. It's a rare occurrence that a AAA game comes out nowadays that is a new, original, entertaining experience. Video games used to have so much passion involved in them. You could play a game and just feel the love that its creators had for it. You could play through a story that would stick with you forever because it was so emotional and so well made. But now, we just play games because we know the company and we're just hoping that it is good enough. They simply don't care about what they're putting out anymore. Look at Overwatch, for example. Yet another game that was on top of the world at one point. It was released in 2016 and not only won Game of the Year, but also Best Game Direction and Best Multiplayer Game that same year. So it was promising from the start. Overwatch had everything a game should have. Beautiful, artistic, and unique graphics, complex characters, good gameplay and mechanics, And it was a multiplayer game. Gamers loved that a multiplayer game could have such deep lore without in-game missions to explain it. Blizzard did this successfully by releasing cinematic stories on social media. It gave the game so much more life when you knew about the characters you were playing and the locations you were at. The lore was so beloved that players unanimously wanted a PvE story mode. Then, in 2019, just 3 years after Overwatch's release, Blizzard released a trailer for Overwatch 2. They released a cinematic along with a gameplay trailer. Players were ecstatic. The same multiplayer game modes we already knew, alongside a new story mode where you could even upgrade and customize your character's abilities. It was going to be everything players dreamed of and more. And then, after 4 years with very little info releasing about the progress of Overwatch 2, it was released. Finally, the game everyone had been waiting for was here. Or so we thought. Overwatch 2 was one of the saddest video game releases of all time. They didn't deliver on any of their promises. No PvE mode, no story missions, no upgrading characters. They didn't even explain why everything was missing. They just said it was due to development challenges. All Blizzard did was update the graphics a little, add a few maps and heroes, change a few existing ones, and slap a 2 at the end of the title. Oh, but how could I forget? Battle Passes! That's right, it's a seasonal live service game now. At least they continued adding new heroes to the game, locked behind a paywall, of course. It took them 4 years to deliver us depressing garbage. Overwatch 2 has easily gone down as one of the worst disappointments in gaming history. And these aren't just my words. Overwatch 2 is the lowest rated game in Steam history. That's why it's the perfect example of modern gaming. Because games don't have the emotional, genuinely well-written stories they used to. AAA has traded out their unique styles and touching stories for simply the most realistic and bland graphics they can make, with stories that are worse than 6th grade fanfiction writers. They just want the money. They're not willing to take a risk on a new original game when they can just make a shitty sequel or a live service moneymaker. I'm sad to see this tragedy unravel before my eyes, but I do think that there's hope on the horizon. In the last few years, we have seen a new trend arise. The indie game era has begun. In today's world, it's easier than ever to make video games. All you really need is a decent computer, adequate knowledge of programming, and determination. And recently, we have seen games made by even just one man rise to gaming famedom. And I think it all started with Among Us. If you don't remember, where the hell were you? But towards the end of 2020, Among Us, a game originally made by a 3-person team at Innersloth, became the most popular game in the world for months, reaching 500 million players in November of 2020 alone. You could see multiple of the most popular content creators play it together almost every single night. It brought everyone together in a dark and lonely time. It was a cultural phenomenon like no other. And since then, games just as small or even smaller have held the limelight for a time. AAA thinks that we just want the best graphics possible with average gameplay and story. But they are wrong. Even Marvel Rivals shows that it is possible to make a good modern live service game without excluding the unique lore and visual style. They took a familiar IP and made it entirely their own with fresh lore and stunning artistic style. Games like Lethal Company, Helldivers 2, and Schedule 1 all prove that we just want a good game. As I said before, indie developers don't have the funds or resources to make games with crazy realistic graphics. And that's why I think they are the ones that really shine. An indie developer is often one or just a few people that had a vision and decided they wanted to make a game. So they spend countless hours working their ass off to make their dream a reality. Like Lethal Company, they use the resources they have to make it visually pleasing in a way that doesn't require the best Unreal Engine has to offer. Like Helldivers 2, they create a unique story to give the player something to fight for. Like Schedule 1, they use their knowledge of video games to make the gameplay so entertaining that you'll play for hours before realizing you haven't eaten lunch and it's almost dinner time. This is what we want from games. So fuck brand loyalty. We want originality. We want artistic vision. We want games like they used to be. We want to feel that the developers are as passionate about the game as we are. Games should be made by gamers, the people who understand the endless possibilities that a video game can have. I don't want this to seem like a hate speech about modern gaming. I want it to be a love letter. This comes from a place of love, and it is because of that love for gaming that I am sad and frustrated. I don't think that there's no hope for video games, but I want to see the big publishers, the ones that video games were founded on, I want to see them do better. Because all we can really do as a mere player is play the games that still have a soul. The indie games made by gamers themselves. Show AAA that if they're not going to make a good game like they used to, then we're not going to play it. Bring back gaming for the sake of gaming. Gaming was built by dreamers, and it's dreamers who will save it. So if you're one of them, and you want to make a video game, go build something better. Make me proud. Use this as your sign to start that journey. Make something beautiful that you are proud of and share it with the world. We'll be waiting. But maybe make it affordable.